Hello, welcome to another episode of Talk with One, a leadership podcast. Today we have a guest who is a master certified coach. She is created a framework to expedite quantum shift in vertical development for your CXO, strategy leaders, and organization. She is a creator of framework state shift to help you to realize more purposeful, sustainable, systematic outcomes in the conscious emergence. Please welcome guest for this episode, Antoinette Braks. Welcome, Antoinette.
Thank you very much, Bon. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Could you share a thing about yourself that we may not know?
Oh, okay. Well, I think one of the things probably people are not so much aware of, and something that you raised a minute ago, is I'm a bit of a traveler. So while my business is now based in Ireland, here in the heart of Europe, I enjoy traveling to different countries always, consistently. Every year I'm probably living in 2 or 3 different countries. And my current commitment is to go to where the clients are, where the new client project is, so that I can be there in their context and get things off the ground. So I enjoy the opportunity to continue to travel in my life.
I also see that beyond traveling, you also help us to shift our mindset or our consciousness.
Yes, that's my passion or purpose in terms of my own life, is to have elevated my own consciousness, and also to see that opportunity for other people so we can live more harmonious lives here on earth. I think it's a very long evolutionary curve in terms of civilizations, and right now we're in a very important pivot point with the new digital age and the problems that we need to sort out from the old industrial age, where we've really exploited the earth and taken it too far. So we've got a lot of those wicked type problems to solve. And the pandemic and the grassroots movements in terms of the polarization of politics, all these things are creating not just complexity, but I think a level of chaos in the world that needs a more conscious leadership to transcend, resolve, and move past.
Yes.
Recreate
Yes.
our foundations for society.
Thanks for sharing the need for us to transform. And when we say about consciousness and complexity, we usually associate with vertical development. So I'm curious, what is vertical development for you?
Yeah, and I love the way you said, what is vertical development for you? Because everyone does interpret it a little bit differently. If we start with the difference between personality and perspective. So personality is our style, our way of operating, who we are, and in terms of how we operate. But perspective is the mindset we're coming from. And our perspective goes up vertically in terms of levels, while our personality is more the horizontal way of shaping ourselves, the way of our being in the world. And the more conscious we become of our fuller self, the broader our perspective. It gets both broader and deeper, because if you like, from a different altitude, you can be on the top of the mountain, you can see more than when you are in the valley. So the level of perspective that we have affects what we can see, and how much we can see affects our decision making. So we become much more effective as leaders if we have a broader and deeper perspective, because we can perceive much more. And if we also have a personal awareness of how this is flowing through us in terms of how conscious energy is moving things and working with us, then we're able to be more effective in the world. In terms of not reacting, but more proactively responding to events, and in fact realizing how those events come about to help us to evolve.
Mm. I think you brought a very important point. It is the lens or the perspective we see the world, and that actually influence the way we react or behave, and also the way we make meaning through the event. And from the material that you share on LinkedIn and the social media, I see that you are very passionate about shifting the leaders to the stage of Synergist. Maybe share with us what is behind that passion.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Juan. Synergist is the first level of leadership. It's an elevated perspective where we have the inner validation. So we're self-validating. We're not relying on other people to say, give us permission, or to say that's okay, or even that that's good. We're simply self-validating, and therefore can transcend chaos and transform it. Mm-hmm. Up to that level, we simply navigate the system. Mm-hmm. We can be directive. We can even be what's called a transformational leader, which is someone who leads with vision and says, get on the bus or get off the bus. But if you're on, this is where we're going. Mm. But that's quite different from being a synergist leader, where synergy is about everyone all together coming on board with each other, because we learn to understand each other in a caring, respectful way, so that everyone can move forward together. So a synergist can do that because they've integrated their own self. Once you've integrated all these disparate parts of yourself, which includes shadow, yes, then you develop the compassion to hold the disparate parts of everyone else. And that holding that psychological safe space is what a synergist does naturally, does organically, because that is the person they've become. So in developing what's called that fourth perspective, it's becoming who we are. And then we shift on to being at fifth person perspective. In the third, the way most of the world is, we're just doing, we're human doings. Yes. Then we become a human becoming, and then we ultimately land up as a human being, where things flow through us.
Yes. As you share that, there's one word pop or attract my attention. That's the word of navigating. You talk about the challenges we are facing from the digital advancement, and also currently we having this convention on 26th of February, and just last 2 days we have a crisis in Ukraine, and I'm just wonder, what would a synergist see this crisis?
Yeah. Well, on the one hand, we have Russia invading Ukraine. Russia wishes to take their territory, to return it, and believes it's theirs, and they want to return that territory, that land, to Russia, and avoid the Ukraine joining, for instance, NATO or the Western European community. So it's a proactive move to consolidate Russia's position in the world. It also took, well, I'm just describing the event now from my perspective, right? It also took, so I'm seeing it from a geopolitical lens. It also took place a day after the end of the Olympic Games in China, which suggests that China and Russia were also talking with each other, and that Russia was respecting China by, and the Olympic Games, in fact, by delaying its move until afterwards. And then you've got the responses of the different countries, which are from, in terms of, so political responses relate to whether or not we're going to be friends, right, in the world. I tried to bring it down to like a neighborhood on a street. You've got different houses on a street, and those different houses are different countries and different sized houses. So the idea is to have a neighborhood where everybody is taking care of each other, really, a neighborhood careful. So one house has taken over the people in another house and said, no, you're part of our country now. We're gonna hold you together. But not all the people there want to be part of Russia. Some of the people there do, and some of them want to be part of Europe. So if I was a synergist on the street, or a later stage, I would open my door for the people who wanted to be part of Europe when I was in Europe to join us. So that would be a humanitarian angle, as opposed to simply a political move. It would be saying, let's give people choices on where they wish to be. Now, a synergist wouldn't take over. It's an opportunist action logic to actually take over another country. So it's being done for self-interest, not for people's well-being. A synergist only operates for everyone's shared well-being now and in the future. So people come first, not territory, not profits, not organizations, not even business. It's how do we enable everyone here to thrive and flourish?
Wow, you offer a wide range of a wide perspective. I see that a synergist see beyond personal interest, and they see the multiple system in the example, right? There is the European system and maybe the global system. And one thing you offer that synergists are concerned about people. And that is itself is a very noble truth or noble aspiration. And at the same time, if I brought this perspective in the business, and that I felt that there is a tension. On one hand, there is a larger system. So I'm shifting from the Ukraine crisis to the situation in the corporates. So the leader who would maybe aspire to be a synergist, and they are in an environment where there may be different priority, like maybe most common one will be either profit or growth. And so how would you share your perspective when the leaders share this challenge with you?
So I suppose one of the things that I talk with to leaders and organizations is the need for synergists at the top 100, top 200, top 10% of an organization. I believe need to be at synergist if the organization is even to thrive and flourish. Because there's so much complexity and growing chaos in the world that unless we've got that level of leadership at the top that is attempting to synergize rather than separate, attempting to create flourishing community over the longer term, including all stakeholders, so all community interests, not just shareholders, then together we can move forward. I mean, the problems in the world today, even something like housing affordability, it's becoming impossible for young people, even when they're fully employed in a developed economy, to buy a house because it's simply out of their range. Now that's not a good element within society if we can't even buy homes for ourselves when we're fully employed. So that's sorry, I'm going to the socioeconomic thing now, but that's like a big issue. Now, if you're a business and you've got something to do with housing, like you're a bank or you're a builder or whatever, we need to find ways of enabling more people to be in houses. So if you're in a business that way, you would create a business model that facilitates more flourishing for everyone. Yeah. Does that make sense? It's a bit like, if you think about IKEA. IKEA is a huge global business, right? And its purpose is, I think, to make furnishings affordable for everyone.
Yes. And also sustainable.
Yes, it's also very sustainable. So as soon as you have those sort of noble purposes built into the fabric of your business in terms of why you're there, that shifts everything around you. Yeah. And I would also suggest that if you have a purpose that's noble, your profits will come automatically if there's an intelligent business model. We don't need to focus on how do we make more profits. We just need to make enough profits so it's sustainable and sufficient for reinvestment. It's not about just making more money. It's actually about being economically sustainable in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, I think you point out a very important theme for the century is sustainability.
Yes.
Yes. And from there, I'm actually quite conscious about leadership development. I think we know what works and what may not work. From your perspective, what would you suggest to develop leader in a sustainable manner?
Okay. And I'd like you to take your question one step further, not even including how to sustainably develop leaders, but how to develop leaders to shift them to synergist.
Mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So most of the majority of leaders in today's world are at a level called achievist,
Mm-hmm.
which is about high performance.
Yes.
That's called third perspective. And when you move to fourth perspective, it's about everyone thriving and flourishing. So it's about development and well-being as well as performance. But development and well-being are just as important as performance. Everything goes together. For leadership development to work effectively at fourth perspective, which is quite different from developing leaders at third perspective,
Yes.
we need to do three things. We need to do shadow resolution, which is normally not part of most leadership programs. We need to integrate leadership development with the development of the organization, because we can't add an extra layer of leaders, a synergist level of leadership capacity, without putting another floor on the building, if you like, that has that elevated perspective. They need to have the space to see much more broadly into their human systems that they're a part of. And thirdly, as a coach, we need to offer transformative, the next generation of coaching, not just developmental coaching. Because if you are a coach with a later level of consciousness, you need to be able to bring access to those insights, those deeper insights, into your coaching conversations. So to both inspire, inform, and invite people with different ways of seeing that stretch their minds, that enables them to see more, and therefore to develop the synergist leadership capacity.
Yeah, from just what you share, right, I see the perspective that you are taking, or you are offering. First, it's not about individual work or individual development in silo. It's integrating the strength, and I think you say shadow, and also the individuals in the wider systems of systems. And you also talk about transformational coaching. So maybe share with our listener and also the audience, what's the relationship between shadow work and transformational coaching?
Okay. So shadow work is one aspect of transformative coaching. Transformative coaching means that the transformation comes from the inside out of the person you are coaching. So there's transformational is more of doing something to someone. We're going to transform you, but transformative arises from within. Wow. So the coaching is transformative because it's arising from within the coachee. And one of the things that we look at is shadow, because shadow is what causes, so this is a different way of looking at emotions, actually. So this is emotional intelligence at a more, let's say, synergist level, or whatever, a more advanced level, where an emotional trigger is, when we get emotionally triggered, so we were reacting to something, that's designed for us to heal. It's designed for us to better understand ourselves in terms of what caused that emotional reaction. So for instance, let's say someone criticizes me and I get emotionally react. I think, well, why are they saying that about me? Then I might look at that criticism and say, well, what is it in that criticism that has affected me? And then I can heal that part of myself, which is shadow, so that I'm no longer disrupted by other people's criticism. And that's what in turn makes me self-validating, because I'm not concerned about other people's opinions. I'm actually concerned about understanding them and enabling them to understand each other, because I've integrated myself, because I understand myself. and I'm no longer triggered. So when you arrive at Synergist, it's called calm. It's from flow to calm. So you have a clear, open, calm mind because you've healed most of your personal shadow. So you've healed the triggers. So you rarely get triggered. And we don't understand that as human beings in leadership development so much. But that's the case.
Wow. I want to share what I take away from what you share. In shadow work, we not only look within ourselves, we also see how we react with the trigger, like you said. And it's like a dance between self and the external environment. How does the trigger affect me? How would I respond or work on myself? And then put up a response that at the level where am I? And I think we talk about the synergy, is right? How would I respond when I'm being challenged or being under stress and being exhibiting behavior that is demonstrating the synergies?
Yeah. And you see, it arrived because once we've healed our own shadow, for instance, a shadow that's very common to a lot of people, it's universal, is the not good enough shadow. I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough here. But most of us actually just inherit that shadow through our education system and the way we're raised in our society. So we can flick off that shadow once we understand and think, okay, that's just the not good enough. Of course, I'm okay, and just flick off that shadow. But other shadow are deep within us, are embedded within us. So therefore, we actually have to look at that and integrate that shadow back within us. Why am I saying all this? When you have healed those elements of yourself that were hurt in the past, hurt as children, and as children, we don't have the cognitive processing to be able to process the pain we are on the receiving end of. So therefore we just suppress it, we hide it. For instance, rejection happens to everyone. Friends might reject us. We go to a group of school and people say, no, you can't join us. So we get rejected, and that causes us pain. It causes us to feel a little bit wounded. So we suppress that pain. When we, in the fourth person perspective, we need to look at that pain and heal it, forgive it, let it go, change it, transform it. And then we're no longer at risk of rejection or feeling hurt by rejection because it's healed. So you can't be triggered by something you've already healed. And that's where the mind becomes clear, because all those voices otherwise are trying to get our attention. Sorry, I'm probably saying far too much in a short space of time, but yeah.
Thank you. I think you offer a very rich perspective. I hear this word healing or heal a few times. I'm just wondering, how would we relate healing with leadership? Seems to be like, wow, it's a bit like quite a bit of tension.
Yeah. It is interesting because healing is not a word that is commonly used with leadership development. And yet, as human beings, becoming whole, all of ourselves, that requires some healing process. To become whole and the word healing are both drawn from the same original Latin terms. And in fact, to hold psychologically safe space, not just to be not afraid of repercussions or consequences, which is sort of how you look at it from a third perspective, but to feel psychologically held in terms of safe space so you can be vulnerable and sharing a part of yourself. That helps a community to bond together, creates what I call inner team coherence. You have outer strategic alignment, and then you have inner team coherence. So that requires us to hold space. And you got the word hold again, which is part of being whole, which is part of healing. So all these terms, even though they don't appear to be connected, they're all part of the same substance that she enables as a human being us to collaborate together, to innovate together, to move into flow, to work synergistically, because we have an inner sense of alignment, just like a flock of birds flying through the sky. That they adjust to their immediate neighbors, 7 or so neighbors, biologically, organically, naturally, automatically. We as human beings can do that too. But most of us don't realize we can, because we see ourselves all as separate as opposed to coherent, as a part of an energy field that we're working together on. And teams is the beginning of that, right? Because a team on a sports field, they are a really strong team. And I'm a New Zealander, so the All Blacks, I'm a big fan of the All Blacks, and I love netball. But you can see the teams, when they really get to know each other, they understand how to work together to realize an end goal. Well, that's what we need systemically inside organizations, not just teams, but whole communities. And teams work really well at third perspective, but at fourth perspective, it's the whole community. So the teams no longer compete with each other. The teams collaborate with each other in order to realize that larger, bigger picture across society. If you're going to fifth perspective, then we're looking at our socioeconomic reality within which we work as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, such a rich example. I want to share with you a common challenge I hear from other leaders. I think most of the leaders understand what you share, the aspiration to be for the common good. I also hear many leaders, they connectively understand, and behavior or maybe the heart seems like want to safeguard or keep what they already have or what they are good at. Seems like my interpretation is some leader hold what they have very tightly and not willing to well venture a bit like what is shadow work, what is healing.
Yeah, they need help. They definitely need help. So if you're a leader of a large organization, there's a high career risk, right? CEOs only last 3 to 5 years mostly. So a CEO or anyone at a strategic leadership it doesn't want to take a risk, personal risk or career risk, to do anything too different, because then, anything could happen. They could lose their job, etc., lose their status, lose their income. So what I found for these leaders is they need to have a proven way to enable them to shift the system and themselves to Synergist. So my research is all about how do people actually shift from achievist to Synergist with zero risk, knowing exactly how to do it for their organization systemically and for themselves as a system, as a human system. Shadow is really just part of our human system. So is the mind, the heart, the will. When you put all these things together in an integrated way and become congruent, in a congruence, then you end up at Synergist. So we've got at stage shift proven approaches, so there's zero risk. And we've got the later stage capacity amongst all our coaches, so that people are held to enable their development. And when I say held, I mean psychologically held. Yeah.
Yes. I think you mentioned that to help leader who may hold too tightly is to offer something proven.
Yes.
I think that word itself is very powerful because it speaks in their language possibly.
Yes.
And offer them a space where they can explore that this has been explore, experiment, try with other people. And I think if create some space of safety, without diverging the whole thing, what's one thing about this proven way that can help leader to shift?
Well, I think one of the critical things, and I'm realizing this more and more, is that you can have a Synergist awareness, but unless you put it into action, it doesn't change anything. So we actually help leaders transform their organization systemically, because that enables them to become Synergists and to hold that new organization in place. So for instance, there's no point having a Synergist perspective in a business that's at third perspective that just wants to make profits, right? A purposeful organization is at fourth. So this is the big shift in the world today, is going from third to fourth. But we want to include third. And what we're really doing is replacing the second, I know this is now complex, but we're replacing the second collective, which is institutional power, with the fourth collective, which is community well-being.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
so we're shifting the collective, embracing the achievist and shifting the collective.
wow. So it's a very huge, at least in my perspective, it's huge undertaking. Not only the leader need to develop themselves, they also need to bring their organization along.
Yes.
And just to relate to what you shared earlier, the CEO career maybe 2-3 years, maybe 5 years, and that create a kind of like dilemma, right? While I'm very aspiring to bring my organization along, and when you share that, one thought come to me: what if I fail?
Yes. So with stage shift, you won't. Yeah, we take out the risk. We take away the risk because we've done it many times. And one thing I actually would like to encourage senior executive leaders to do is to realize that whatever their purpose statement is, that's the ceiling on all possibilities. So if you're the CEO, senior executive team, and your purpose is simply to make more profits next year or build the best motor vehicle that you can, even if it is a self-drive, that limits your possibilities. So what I'd like all organizations to do is create really what you said earlier on, a noble purpose that somehow or other benefits all of society, benefits everyone and life on the planet. And then the possibilities are endless. And the opportunities become more numerous because we're simply aspiring to do more, to realize more, bring more,
So
more well-being into the
yes, I think from what you share, I can see that you are practicing a systematic approach, not only the leaders, also on the organization level. And it is a proven method that you have tried and maybe your colleague has tried. So to move forward, I would like to explore a bit on, let's say the leader is interested to develop further. Is it the leader, what could the leader do to prepare himself or herself? I mean, to to engage in this conversation, I mean, beyond joining the program that you have.
Yeah. Look, to be honest, I think it takes courage and purpose. So as a leader, and in terms of as people, in terms of leading lives on earth here, like we all have a lifetime. If we want to go beyond earning a living and instead want to make the world a better place, resolve the issues that we have today, like climate change, like the pandemic, like shifting things, like the 4-day work week is fantastic. But it's come about because of the pandemic. But we're actually more productive on 4 days of work a week rather than 5. So we have to shift a lot of perspectives from human resources to talent to human beings and enable everyone to evolve. So I think that takes courage to lead a more purposeful life. If leaders leading organizations wish to ensure that their business didn't just meet shareholders' needs, but actually met the needs for current and future generations, that shifts everything.
Yes.
So the courage to be purposeful.
I felt that word, that phrase is very powerful. Courage to be purposeful. I think that's what I hope many people will embrace that. And we talked quite a bit, close to 35 minutes. We started with vertical development and your perspective. You want to hear a bit of your interpretation of the Ukraine crisis from a Synergist perspective. And then we move towards from politics to the business, leadership development. How would you propose to develop a leader to the Synergist level? So I felt that there is a lot of rich sharing and dialogue. I'm actually quite curious. I would like to ask a question for you.
Okay.
What is it in it for you personally in this endeavor, helping leaders to shift in their mindset and their development?
The yeah, look, I think it's a sole purpose, really. I set up my first company when I was about 30 years old, and I called it Realize.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about realizing our potential. So for me, my whole lifetime has been about what is our potential as human beings, really coming back to Maslow, so that we all self-actualize. So again, in terms of, so for me, if I wanted to, the courage to be purposeful, to evolve, is the outcome. If all of us evolved, and especially strategic leaders, and especially national leaders as well, because systemically we're just, voting isn't really creating democracy anymore. We need more voices in the system, and we need different candidates leading our countries. So for me, the key is evolution, which is really a scientific concept. And while I look at it spiritually as well, because I'm a big fan of mind, body, spirit, cultivating the self, Socrates, Aristotle, all these philosophers of the past, we need to cultivate our conscious self. So instead of being self-conscious, we're thinking about the conscious self. Yeah. So we actually embody all of ourselves. And for me, that's what my life's all about, helping people to evolve. And I've invested a lot in my evolution and travels, and now have a great coaching community who are also in the process of their own evolution and evolving their client organizations. And now we've put together a leadership program that helps an organization over a period of 3 years lift entirely. So the whole organization will lift, as will all the levels of leaders, to their own potential, so that there's no more container. I find organizations are too containing. They're too conventional, too traditional. So we need to, lift. We need to lift off. We need to move to more of what I would say like an aircraft system, where there's lots of networks, lots of different alliances, flight alliances, to enable the whole world to lift off, as opposed to being stuck as cars and vehicles and trucks on highways and byways, staying on the land. So that's third perspective, striving and driving and making things happen. Whereas when you go to the fourth perspective, you have liftoff, because you have more of an aircraft type transport analogy, where everybody lifts off together to realize our potential, unlimited possibilities, if you like. So it's all possible. It's actually not even that hard, because we've practiced it and proven it and done it a few times.
Wow.
But that's what we're bringing to organizations today.
Wow. Thanks for sharing your purpose, evolving ourselves. And there's one word that you brought in just in this sharing. I think you talk about spirituality, mind, body, world. Maybe share a bit, what do the leader need to consider about this mind, body, world?
Okay, well, I think one of the key things, and this is part of the stage shift approach to vertical development, is the heart at the middle of all this. So it is mind, body, spirit, but let's say we've got the ego and the will and the heart, intuition and spirit, or mind after intuition, mind, and then spirit and soul further up. The idea is that all of that is in congruence, that it's all aligned. So if we have inner alignment like that, we feel like we've got it together, basically, because we have it together inside. So what we do in part of our leadership development is what I call holistic leadership development, which is bringing that congruence together. And for a lot of people from third to fourth, it's actually opening the heart to others and also for self. And then from the heart, we move into flow, which is where intuition starts to become really important. And then we have an open, clear mind. And when we end up with an open, clear mind, we can become more spiritually attuned. So it's not spirituality per se, but it's inner congruence, so that we've got it together. Basically, we've got our lives together on the inside out as well as the outside in. So the more work we do on the inside out, the more the outside world comes together. So life experience changes when we get more and more integrated.
Wow.
We move from struggling and striving. So at third, we're struggling and we're striving. Now, there's a lot of effort in struggling and striving, right? That's what most people's life experience is when you're at third, at achievist. But when you move to fourth, you're thriving and flourishing. So you can see that's much more effortless. So life actually becomes easier because we're thriving and flourishing, because we're more noble in our purpose and in our capacity. We're not reactive anymore. We're much more responsive to each other and other people, and also the problems we face. So life becomes more peaceful, more easier, and more effortless. And yet we get so much more done because life is happening through us, not just by us. So life happens to us at second, life happens by us at third, life happens through us at fourth, and life happens as us is fifth. So life changes when we evolve, which I would like to see more people do.
Wow. So what I sense is, if I myself is whole and integrated, both inside and outside, I can see the flow. I think that is the message that you like to share with us. You can see the flow. And before we end our dialogue today, do you have a message for our listeners and the audience?
I do. I mean, I put something together a little while ago that I thought, if I was going to advise, what would I suggest to anyone? And just in a few words, I would say it's to be true to self. So I've got three little phrases. So that's the first one. But be true to self is like, if you're feeling that you need to be doing something and you're feeling called to do something, or you see someone trip and you want to sort of help, then, be true to self. If you're on a path and you think, I'm not enjoying my life as it is, then experiment, find other things. So be true to self. Don't just simply be content with what is. If you're feeling niggles, if you're feeling a need to do something else, be true to yourself, your own impulses. It's really an evolutionary impulse that I think we need to be true. So be true to self, be kind to all. So I think kindness at all times to all life is something that ensures you have a very peaceful ripple effect in life, which I think is very important. So be true to self, be kind to all, and be all you can be, which is the message of evolution. Be all you can be.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what I hear is being congruent inside and outside. And I would say treat others with compassion and kindness. I think that's what you say.
Yes.
And the third one is very important, that I felt that be the best you can be.
Yeah, be all you can be.
Be the all you can be.
Which means there's evolution there, right? Becoming all we can be.
Wow. Become all we can be in today's message. And in this environment, I felt like energized by the message, the possibility, even though there over horizon, there's a dark cloud, more than one dark cloud. And I felt that I can see possibility with the message that you have, the approach that you share with us. Is it a good time we pause this conversation?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much, Juan, for your beautiful questions and your interpretation each time as well, too. It's really lovely. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.